Hello and welcome to the Kuriaknits podcast. My name is Erin and I'm so glad you've joined me here today. In this podcast, we like to talk all about knitting and yarn and things that I am making. And it has been a while since I have gotten to talk to you guys. If you followed me for a while, you'll know that I was completing my comprehensive exams, which is something that you do. It's a milestone that you do in your PhD. I am getting a doctorate in history, medieval history. And so I had a big exam that I had to take. So I took some time off to concentrate on that. And I'm happy to say that I took the exam in the past week and I've received word that I passed the exam, which is a big win for me. I don't know what I passed it with. I haven't received my grade yet. But I mean, you really just have to pass, so that's a big win for me. And the next step is to defend my written portion of the test. So basically, I had 3 hours to write as much as I could on the 100 books that I've already read for my major field exam, which in my case was medieval history. So I was basically being like, this author said this, and this author said this opposing thing. And I had 3 hours to get that all out on a page. And now I have 3 people that are going to question me saying, why didn't you mention this author? And what do you mean here? You wrote something weird. And it's gonna be so fun. Due to scheduling conflicts, my oral exam is actually at the end of the month. Typically they're a little bit closer together, but I have about 3.5 weeks in between mine. So I have a little bit of time to chill where I really don't have any responsibilities for my PhD. I mean, there's always things going on, but yeah, it was delightful. After my 3-hour exam, I came home and I knitted without any I knit. As you can tell, I'm better at writing English than I am at speaking English. I have a bit of a lazy, I'm lazy with my grammar when I speak. I came home and knit without regret is what I was trying to say for the past month. Every time I picked up my knitting, I have felt guilty because I should be studying, but with long COVID and other things going on, my mind was not in a place where I could study for more than like 20 minutes at a time. So I actually have a ton, like a mountain of knitting to show you guys. So I think that this will be kind of a long episode. And for that reason, I am going to jump right into it. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell from the hints of my shirt that is peeking up here, but I finally finished my Riento top, which is a design by Sari Nordlund. And let me show you. It is beautiful. Check out that detailing. This has been on my needles, it feels like absolutely forever. I had bought this yarn while I was in Copenhagen, and then I ran out of the yarn just to find out that the beautiful color that I chose is basically unavailable in Canada. There was one place in Vancouver, Wet Coast Wools, that I could have received it, but because I spent so much in Copenhagen, I'm on a bit of a yarn buying ban, especially for full price yarn, especially when you have to pay like $150 for free shipping. It was just unrealistic for me. So I basically said in a podcast that I'm just gonna wait until I run into it somewhere and the top will be on hold. And then many of you got in contact with me asking if they could send me some of Santa's Garden Lena, which is the yarn that this is in. And one of you did. One of my lovely subscribers sent along 2 balls of Santa's Garden Lena. I only needed 1, so that's why I have this extra one. And I'm sure I will find something to do with it. But thank you so much to Karen from Norway and her daughter, which lovingly sent it my way. Karen's daughter happens to live in Canada, so she passed it on to her daughter, who then posted it off within Canada to me, so it was a little bit more economical. But the fact that this came all the way from Norway, from the Santa's Garden flagship store, is just such a blessing in my life, and I was able to finish the top, and it has become a firm staple in my wardrobe. I've already worn it like 4 times and I only finished it like 2 weeks ago. So I have been wearing this thing to death. It is just the perfect shape for me. And I am so unbelievably grateful to you, Karen. So thank you. And thank you to everyone else that offered to send some my way. I was trying to source it from all sorts of places. I was talking to a local-ish yarn store to me to send some, and they actually put it in their order, and then Santa's Garden didn't send it. So thankfully, I was a little bit worried that someone was going to send some and then I was going to get some from my local yarn store and I'd have just like an abundance of this color all of a sudden. But thankfully, I only have 1.5 balls left over and I'm sure I will find something beautiful to do with it. I know that it looks decently well with the white. So I think next summer I might get a ball or two of the white Santa Scarlina and make something with those two beautiful colors. Speaking of this color, I love this top so much. I was in Galt House of Yarn, which is a yarn store in Cambridge, Ontario, which is not too far from me. And I was there, they had a reopening event and a 5-year anniversary. So they had some yarn sales and I just wanted to go in, pop in and support them and also see if they got my Santa Scarlina. But I found this in their clearance bin, which is the Lena in their black, like charcoal-y kind of color. And I figured I'd pick it up. They had exactly 4 balls on sale. I think I got them all for $15, I think, which is way cheaper than it usually is here. And I plan to make another one of these because, oh, we've got a string hanging out. As you can see, I don't weave in my ends very well. But I am just obsessed with this shape. I actually had a top from H&M that was basically this exact same shape of top, loose fitting, cropped tank top that was black and in cotton, and I wore it to death. There are literally 7 or 8 holes in the thing, and I still have it. I still sleep in it because it's the comfiest top. I find that it suits me so well. I literally have checked the H&M website every single year for about 5 years to see if they'd bring it back, and they haven't. I picked up one in a striped blue and white on sale the year after I initially got the black one, but unfortunately they have never brought it back, and it's been so sad for me. I've checked like Poshmark, I've checked thrift stores, I've had my eye out for this top forever, because I'm like, if I can find any more, I will buy 5 of them because I love the way that they sit on me. But I think this is finally my solution to that problem because I'm not keen on fast fashion. I try not to buy it as much anyways. But if it's something that I'm going to wear over and over again, that's fine. But if I can just make a top that's very similar, then that's good. So I have made some adjustments to this top. I did not do the ribbed collar. I tried it. I didn't love the way that it looked on me. It just cinched the neckline in a lot, and I actually really love the loose neckline here. And then for the sleeves, I also didn't do the ribbing. Instead, I decided to just crochet the edge of it to bring the armhole in just a little bit, and I think I would do that on another one again. I love the drape of this yarn, the way that it looks. I find that it is just perfect. It is a cropped length, which is great for me because I almost always wear high-waisted pants, and yeah, I just love it. This top also comes with a short sleeve option. So if you're looking for something with a puff sleeve, I would also recommend checking out the Riento top by Sari Nordlund. It is just so beautifully designed, and I'm debating back and forth on the black one whether to do all of this texture detail. There's eyelets on the side here. It's really not a hard pattern. It's a 4-row repeat, very easy to memorize, but I'm wondering if I use the shape, the structure of this top and just do something in stockinette, if that would work, if that would go well with the black yarn, because you're not gonna be able to see most of the details in the black yarn anyway. So I don't know if I'm gonna do that or if I'm just gonna stick to the tried and true, what I know works well, but I am so thankful to have this off my needles. Thank you so much again to Karen, who was able to send this yarn to me, and it's just been a joy to be able to wear at long last. Speaking of finished objects, I've got one more. This one is been carefully awaited. I have been shocked to see how many people have been absolutely obsessed with this design. Not shocked, but like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting, I guess, the fanfare over it. I've gotten probably more messages about this top than anything else that I've ever knit, and it is the Lucy blouse by Knitting Deer, and it looks like this, and it is complete. It is really a beautiful design. It's got this cross at the bust and these beautiful puffed out sleeves, and it is all knit in half fisherman's rib. So you can see just the beautiful design there. And yeah, it is just stunning. As you can see, I haven't weaved in my ends yet, and I haven't honestly given it a proper soaked block because I have been waiting for this podcast because I just wanted to show you. So as you know, or may know that this yarn was thrifted from Value Village. So this whole thing cost me about $2 to make, which is lovely. It's a silk mohair, and I've actually done a little bit more research about the company. So I got 2 cones of it. It looks like this. And the company that's listed inside is Flippucci, I believe. And it is an Italian maker of wools and fabrics, and they actually, it said on their website that they make wools and fabrics for designer brands, and I was like, yeah, okay, what designer brands? But they actually recently announced a partnership with Gucci. So when they say designer brands, they are not kidding. So in my mind, if you ask me, this is now a Gucci shirt. Not actually, but I mean, that just speaks to the quality of this. I was so lucky to come across it. It is definitely such a luxurious mohair. But one of the things that have really been bothering me about it is the length of the fabric. As you can see in the bottom here, this is the most insanely tall mohair I've ever seen in my life. Like, look at that fluff. It's ridiculous. So while I was knitting this, I was worried that it would be intensely unwearable just because of how fluffy it is. But I tried shaving it and it worked really well. I talked about that more in my last podcast, so I won't go on and on. But I actually didn't shave one of the arms that I finished last. So let me show you the unshaved. Do you see the fluff? It's kind of ridiculous. And then versus the shaved. Not only do the stitches pop more, but there isn't as much of a halo. I didn't take away the halo, but the difference between the two, I made a reel on my Instagram about it, but it's truly insane. Look at that fluff versus this. And you can see just the stitch definition. So I'm gonna shave this arm, then give it a good soak, give it a good wash. It is thrift store yarn after all before I officially call this done, but I've been looking at it in the meantime and just admiring its beauty. I think it turned out so well, and I would definitely recommend this pattern. This is a test knit for me, and it is out, so you can find it. It is knit with 3 strands of mohair, but I've seen some other people do 2 strands of mohair plus a fingering weight, so that's definitely an option as well if you don't want an all mohair sweater. But I think that the mohair actually really suits this pattern so well, and I am just in love with the color and the structure on mine. Speaking of the yarn, since last time I had mentioned that I have 2 more cones about the size of this that I have literally no idea what I'm going to do with, because there's only so many mohair sweaters one girl can knit, and of course I'm planning to make some other things with it. It will not go to waste, but I have been completely overwhelmed with the amount of people that have asked me to purchase some of this mohair. I didn't think anyone would want to buy it. It is, after all, luxury thrift store mohair, but I hear you, and I think I am going to sell some of it. So if you are interested in buying this mohair, it's probably going to be a couple more weeks until I can get it in a way that I'd feel comfortable selling it. So some people asked if they could buy one of the cones, and some people asked if I would siphon some off for them. And to be completely honest, I do not feel comfortable selling a yarn from the thrift store as is. That is because, I mean, I know that this is bug-free, but I don't know where it's been. I am comfortable with knitting with like a dirtier yarn, but I don't feel comfortable selling a yarn like that. I am not a thrift store, if that makes sense. And if I were to do resale at thrift store, like even with clothes, I would feel the need to wash it myself before ever sending it into someone's home, especially if I'm shipping internationally. You just don't know what's on the yarn itself. That could be dangerous for myself. So I don't know the logistics of it yet, but I do know that I'm going to skein this up into probably 50 gram skeins, which is double what a usual mohair skein is. They're usually 25. Here, let me pull. This is a hint for something else I'm doing. This is a 25 gram skein, so pretty, or donut in this case, pretty typical. I'm gonna do double because I just have so much here, and I'll probably sell them, I'm thinking 10 bucks a piece, just to cover the amount that it's gonna take for me to skein these up, to soak them, to dry them, to be able to put them online. That's basically going to cover those costs of my time. So if you are interested, I will be posting on my Instagram, and hopefully it'll correlate with a future episode as to when I'm going to be putting this up for sale. It is a silk mohair. I do not know the exact percentages of those fabrics. I was trying to figure it out, and I could tell. So they have a category of what type of yarn is it. In the post, I will put up as much of information as I possibly can about this fabric. I know based on what's written inside that it is definitely silk mohair. But when I go to that category on the Flippucci website, some of them are $25.75, some of them are $20.80, some of them are like $10.90. So I actually don't know where this falls. So I cannot guarantee the percentages of mohair versus silk, but I can say that the content is a silk mohair. So that's what it looks like. And I will keep you posted on when I will be putting this up for sale. I might also put a few other things up as well. That is pre-loved yarn that I've washed. I've thrifted lots over the years, and not all of it is, not over the years, in the past year. I haven't been knitting for that long, but I've actually been able to thrift quite a lot of yarn in the past year, and not all of it is yarn. Now that I know a little bit more, my taste is something that I'm going to be knitting with, or in the case of this, I just have way too much of it. So there might be some other yarns that I put up as well, but I will probably come out with an episode where I explain all of that in detail at a future date. So keep your eyes open for that if that is something that you were interested in. Those are all my finished objects. Let's move on to whips. This first whip is my only other test knit that I have going on right now, and it is the Pippin sweater by the Knit Purl Girl. And I don't know entirely where I was last time, but I have finished the body, and I have basically finished one sleeve, and I'm moving on to the second sleeve. So this test knit is due at the end of the month, so I think I'm making pretty good time on it. It is an all over beautiful texture, and it is also a raglan. So I think this gives you a good view of what the structure is like. And I actually ended up doing a sewn bind off, so it looks just beautiful on the ends. Just to go along the lines of the test knit, I almost never do a sewn bind off. I don't really think that, one, I can never get them if I make them stretchy, I find they look sloppy. But if I don't make them sloppy, I find they're not as stretchy. And perhaps that's just inexperience, but I find I cannot have the special middle where I both have a stretchy and beautiful bind off with this. So I might as well just do my preferred crocheted bind off. So that I know it's stretchy, and I think the look of it is fine. But I decided to give it a go, and I will say it is a little bit tight, but because this has such a generous size on me anyways, I think it's perfectly fine. And I do plan to do the same on the collar. You may notice that I kind of cut off. I am planning at this point to move on to the cuff, which is a 1x1 rib. But I wanted to make sure I knit the other side and then steam block it just to make sure. I'm pretty sure this is the length that I need, but I have too many times been in the instance where I put on a cuff, I did the other sleeve, I did it all, I wet block it, and the sleeve is like this much too short for what I prefer. And I have just learned my lesson. I am stopping it here. I'm gonna do the other side. I'm gonna probably not wet block it, I'll probably steam block it, and then I will come back to it and do the cuff, just so that I make sure that I'm actually where I want/need to be for this beautiful sleeve. So I am absolutely loving this. Every time I try it on, I'm like, I want to have this in my wardrobe right now, please. It is such a beautiful sunny color, and I just love the subtle texture and what it brings to the sweater. And the construction of it is beautiful as well. The way that the short rows are done in the back to lift up the neckline here, the way that there's a double rib on the neckline, like it just looks gorgeous, gorgeous. So I'm so excited to have this, and I actually would love to knit another one day. I don't think I'll cast it on right away. There's a lot of purling in this, which is something I seem to be doing a lot of in the sweaters I'm working on lately, and I just think I'm gonna need a little bit of a break from purling. So this is probably going to be another project for another day, but it's been a project that I've absolutely loved working on. I have been knitting it in Jagerspun or Jagerspun mainline, which looks like this. This is their 100% wool in their sport base, and it's 332 yards per hank. So it is beautiful. It's in the color curry. I picked this up at Webb's in Massachusetts when I was in the States. And this pattern calls for a light decay. Because I'm a loose knitter, I decided to go with a sport weight. And I'm so glad that I did, because I have had no issues with gauge whatsoever. So I think it was absolutely the right choice for me. And I really love this yarn. I mean, I'm gonna have to see how it wears before I give a definitive review of the yarn, but so far I am just in love with this stuff. I would love to pick up more. They have lots of different weights. I've looked them up online. I don't know how their shipping is to Canada, but if I'm ever in the States again and I go Webb's, this is the brand I'm going to be looking for, because it is such good quality wool. And for 100% wool to get this beautiful of a color, I just love it. I'm obsessed. So I would absolutely recommend this pattern when it comes out. I think it should be out by the end of the month, but I'll definitely post about it when it is. And if you cannot wait until then, another similar sweater pattern by the Knit Pro Girl by Sophie is the Semper sweater, which just recently came out. It has basically the exact same construction as this one, except instead of a pattern, it's just in stockinette. It's in a very simple shape, very simple construction. It's with a fingering weight and a mohair, and it's also on my list of something to knit, but I think it's a beautiful basic sweater pattern. So if you're looking for a simple raglan and you could go either way on the texture and you want to pass it on right away, I would also recommend that sweater. My next whip, and you will see a theme with many of the whips going forward, I have finished the body on this one, and that is my sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It is beautiful, all over cabling. I think the drape of this is stunning. This is a sweater, I think more than any other that I'm working on, that I cannot wait to have in my wardrobe. There have been many times, now that the weather has definitely gotten a lot cooler, that I have been wanting to have this sweater so that I could pair it with, especially I got some faux leather trousers off of Marketplace recently, and I think that this sweater would look so good with them. I just cannot wait to have this in my wardrobe. So this sweater is by My Favorite Things. I finished the bottom and I added the necklines. This is also a double folded neckline here. I actually cinched it in with some elastic, so it was looking a little bit floppy, but I think it looks perfectly nice now. One other thing I had to do, which was a bit of a makeshift and is not my best work, if I'm being honest. So I've talked in previous episodes how I have a problem with meeting the height gauge of sweaters. I'm fine with stitch gauge. I struggle with row gauge. For whatever reason, all of my stitches are very tall. And usually this isn't a problem. Actually, I kind of like it, because it usually means that I finish the bodies of sweaters a lot quicker. And usually, if the yoke of a sweater is a little bit larger and I have a little bit of gaping in the armpit, it's not something that bothers me all that much. It just gives me an oversized look. It's totally fine. And sometimes I just size down to accommodate for it, especially if there's a generous ease in the sweater. So I just have found ways to work around it. Well, in this sweater, I didn't consider that because of the shape of it, it would make my armholes absolutely massive. My armholes were coming to my waist, basically. So I knew that I would have to put in, either stitch it up or put in something that would make this armhole kind of lift up, because I finished the whole of the body before I realized just how egregious my mistake was and how I should have connected in the round about one cable above. And that's how I've been kind of counting the sweater, is cable by cable. So what I did was I knit a small panel of stockinette and I actually attached it right in here. So you might be able to tell, but from here to here, that was added. And it is not my best work, but I think from afar, when you're wearing it, this is right under the armpit, it is not going to be very noticeable, and it just closes in my armhole to a degree that I'm comfortable with. To be honest, this armhole is still large, but the sweater is a little bit oversized on me. I ended up going a little bit longer. Like, as you can see, this depth doesn't seem very depthy, but because of how big this armhole is, this actually goes down below my waist. So I think that it will just kind of look oversized when said and done. I'll put the arms on, and worst case scenario, I'll add some length, but I honestly don't think that'll be necessary. I'm really pleased with how it looks now, and I know that if I knit this again, I'm just going to have to connect it about one cable above where I would otherwise, unless I can figure out how to fix the height of my stitches, which I don't know how I would even attempt to do that. To be honest, I've never heard of anyone else having this issue. So if you have recommendations, please let me know. But yeah, so I just have the sleeves to do on this one. But I also really just love the way it looks as a slip over. So I think that might be something that I knit in the future, is just knit the body of this and have it as a slip over, because I think it looks great. I know My Favorite Things does have a vest version of this pattern, one which kind of dips, like has more of a vesty shape on the sleeves, but honestly the boxy shape here doesn't bother me any. I don't even think I'd add rubbing. I just maybe crochet the edges to cinch them in a little bit and call it a day. But I think that this would be so cute on its own. But I've got lots of yarn left, so I'm obviously gonna finish the sleeves. But yeah, I've just been loving the way that this pattern looks. And this pattern is knit in Drops Kid Silk and Ficolana Arvetta. And they're in this beautiful lighter green color. I think they actually match beautifully. There's some yarns that when the mohair doesn't match completely, you can absolutely tell it kind of sticks out from the stitches, and that is not the case in this one. I find that they blend together so lovely. And this is my first time using both of these yarns, and I've really been enjoying them. I would say the Arvetta being superwash is not my favorite, but I would also say that of the superwash yarns that I've used, this is not plasticky in the same way that a lot of other superwash yarns are. So I think that they're a beautiful combination. It's not like I invented the combination, lots of people have used it, especially when you're in Europe. These are two incredibly affordable yarns. I picked both of these up in Copenhagen. Do you hear that whistling? I don't know what that is. Okay. If you can hear a whistle, I have no idea where that's coming from. I think it's coming from the hallway. Oh, that's another thing. We bought a house. So I won't be here for too much longer. We're gonna be moving in mid-December, and I am so excited. So my scenery behind me will definitely be changing, and hopefully there won't be random weird sounds coming from the hallway, because it will be my hallway. I will own the hallway. I'm so excited. And I'm gonna have my own room. I feel like a child. I get my own room. That is going to be my office / craft room / closet, and I am just beyond excited. So yes, very exciting. But weird whistle, if you heard that, I'm so sorry. It was like very pitchy. But yeah, this has been a fantastic sweater to be able to knit on. The cables just give enough interest that it keeps you wanting to carry on. And I think the sleeves will go by pretty fast, or at least I'm hoping they will, because I am not the biggest fan of sleeves in general. And you will be able to tell that from my next two whips as well. This next knit is a simple raglan design that I quickly whipped up myself, and it looks like this. So I have completely reknit this since the last time you saw it. I really wanted to do a 2-stitch raglan along the sleeves, and I had only done a 1x1 rib along the neckline, and I decided that if I'm doing a 2-stitch raglan along the sleeves, I might as well do a 2-stitch raglan along the collar. So I completely ripped out everything and I put in a 2-stitch raglan along the collar. It's looking a little floppy right now. I have found this yarn, more than any other yarn that I've ever knit with, likes to curl. And when I was doing the body in stockinette, it was just curl city. It was curling right on up on itself. And I know the stockinette curls, but this thing, like if I didn't have a cable on it, I think it would just like curl up into a little ball. I have never seen yarn curl so much in my life. I don't know why. I think I'm gonna have to do like a very heavy wet blocking of this. And you can even tell by just the ribbing how much this thing wants to curl up on itself. It is fighting. The ribbing is fighting to keep this thing in line. But I think that's why it looks a little bit funky right now. Like the collar's not wanting to cooperate, the bottom's not wanting to cooperate, but I've tried it on. I think it looks fantastic. I think as soon as I get any kind of blocking, I think I'm probably gonna steam block it sooner rather than later, just so that I can get some peace of mind for myself. But yeah, I have been loving this pattern. It casts on 64 stitches, not pattern, I'm inventing it. I cast on 64 stitches. I did the raglan until I was comfortable with the depth, and then I cast off the sleeves and just did the body to a length that I liked. Switched back to a smaller size needle and did 2x2 rib until I liked the look of it. So very simple. I'm going to do, I think, straight sleeves, so I'm not going to do any decreases, and I'm not going to cinch in the cuff. I just want a slouchy straight sleeve. I think that's gonna look so good on this, and I'm planning to extend the 2x2 rib on the cuff a decent amount, granted that it doesn't curl to heck. And that is one of the reasons I have not cast on these sleeves yet, because I am just terrified of how much a sleeve like this is gonna curl. Like look at this. It is just curl city over here. And yes, before you come for me, I know that stockinette curls, but I'm telling you, this is curling way more than any other yarn ever in my life before. It is wild. So I knit this on 6mm needles, and I did all the ribbing on 5mm needles, and I am knitting with all Wellington fibers. So this is the first strand I'm knitting with. This is a sport weight, 30% mohair, 70% wool. It is their 3-ply, and is there color on here? Wellington Natural Gray, and it is gorgeous. And then I happened to, right after I purchased this at the Kitchener Yarn Show, I looked online where I get yarns secondhand, and I found another strand of Wellington fibers. This was being sold secondhand, and it is basically the exact same color. I was planning to pair this with a mohair or something, or maybe do a color work with another sport weight. But once I saw this and saw that they matched almost exactly, I just had to get it. But this one is their 3-ply, and it is 75% mohair and 25% wool, and it is in the shade Wellington Silver. So they're actually not the same shade, but they're pretty bang on with each other. And to be honest, they don't make Wellington Silver anymore. I'm wondering if they just renamed it. But yeah, and the funny thing is, like, this is 70% wool, 30% mohair. This is 75% mohair and 25% wool. So I'm basically making a 50-50 mohair wool sweater. But this mohair is not like the silk mohairs that you'll see. It is much thicker. It is more yarn-like. It just also happens to have a halo. It doesn't feel, it is the softest mohair I've ever felt in my life. And honestly, it feels a lot more like Angora than it does regular mohair. And so for that reason, I would absolutely recommend Wellington Fiber Co's yarns. They are pretty local to me, but I just love the way that they're doing their yarns. It's new. I haven't seen many other people creating these mohair wool combinations like this, and I think it's gonna make a delightful sweater at the end of the day if I can get this darn curling under control, because it is really putting me off wanting to work on it, because it was genuinely difficult to just knit in the round, because it would just curl up. I need to stop talking about it. It was very upsetting and traumatizing, as you can tell. But I think it'll be a beautiful finished object when all is said and done. And I've had a few people ask. I will do my best to put my notes on Ravelry for how I created this. But honestly, if you just look for any free raglan pattern, I think it would probably be better than what I'm doing, because I am not size grading it or anything. So unless you have the exact same body as me, your stitch counts will be completely different. So I don't know how helpful that will actually be for you. This next one is something that I had actually applied to test knit, did not get chosen, and has been on my list forevermore, and it is the Miles shirt jacket. I have really soldiered on with this one since the last podcast. I have finished, like everything else, the body of the project. Every time I look at my whips in my head, I just go body, yada, 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 because all of them, I've just done the body. And I'm now at a place where I've got seven sleeves to knit. And it needs to end. No one wants to be working on all sleeves. And because I don't want to be working on all sleeves, I have 2 more whips that have just been working on the body. I cannot be trusted. I must sit down and just knit these. But this is what this looks like. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It is big and long, and it has this beautiful detailing where it curves up on the edges, and I just think it looks stunning on the body. It has this beautiful double folded collar, and yeah, that curve detail is on the other side as well. And this is done with short row shaping. This is really hard to show on camera. I'm hoping that the photo that I put up will be a little bit easier to see the shape of this thing, but it is basically a big shirt jacket, and it looks a lot like the Jonna jacket from Aritzia, but the cost of the yarn is like a fraction of the cost of the jacket, and I think that this will actually be much nicer than the Jonna jacket in the end. The Jonna jacket is something that I've been wanting for a while, and the fact that I can knit one has made me so happy. And granted, this wears well, which I have all expectation that it will. I absolutely would love to make another 5 of these. I would love to make one in a light gray, maybe with some speckles. I just think it's such an intensely wearable object that I would love to make more of them. It is a pretty simple make, and it just flies off the needles. It has been going so by. It's on a 6mm again. I feel like a lot that I've been knitting has been on 6mm, which is not usual for me, but it just so happens that my 6mm are in high demand right now. I think it must be a fold over of all of my very intricate summer knitting where I was working on 3mm forever. So I just want to do everything on 20 needles going forward, but yes. So this is made in Espace Plutolopi, which is their unspun yarn. So it comes in plates like this. I had picked this up in March, a long while ago from the Knitting Loft in Toronto. And they had a sale going on, like 20% off or something. And yeah, it is just unspun yarn. She actually recommends you do this in the Mantio Slopey, which is from a different brand, but it's also unspun yarn. And the biggest difference between this and that is that the other one is just slightly thinner. So you actually hold 2 of these strands together to make this object, but this creates a slightly thicker yarn. And it is for that reason that I am actually knitting the size 1. The extra small, but it is fitting basically like between a medium and a large, I'd say. And I just had to be careful again of my stitch height. So I'm pretty sure I bound off the arms a little bit shorter than what she had recommended in the pattern. This is by Ozetta, by the way. I don't know if I said that. And yeah, now that I'm mindful of it, it makes it so much easier to be able to make a knit that I am certain will be good for me. Sorry, this Plutolopi likes to shed a little bit, and I can just feel the fibers on my face. It's fine. I think it'll go away with a good block. You can tell just like all the fibers sticking out of it. It is, I'm pretty sure, 100% wool. It's just a little bit of a fluffier, more rustic wool. But for me, it's fine, close to skin. I don't find this unspun as bitey as something like Olafloss or Letlopi. But yeah, so I am making the extra small to account for how this yarn is a little bit thicker and my stitches are a little bit thicker. I have seen some people that have used this. I was looking through the Ravelry pages when I was first casting this on. Some people did go down to 5mm needles, got gauge, made the appropriate size, but I tried swatching with 5mm needles with this yarn and I found the fabric was way too dense for my taste. So I just decided to go on with the 6mm needles. I actually really love the fabric that it's creating. It kind of looks see-through, but it's really not see-through in person. It's not like it's drapey, but it's I think a dense enough jacket that I can wear it as a jacket without it being like stiff. I still wanted to have some movement is what I'm trying to say. So I think that 6mm and holding this double is the perfect balance for me personally. But you can swatch yourself depending on how heavy you are with your needles, how dense your fabric is. You might want to go one way or the other. So I would just definitely recommend, I'm not a huge swatcher myself, but if you are using the Plutolopi with this pattern like I am, I would definitely recommend swatching, because you might be surprised with how dense your fabric gets, especially because this does not, I actually have some Lopy, but I don't have enough to make this. And when I hold the strands up together, they actually don't look that different to me, but they are very different when you're knitting with them. So I would just beware and definitely make a swatch if you too are making this shirt jacket. This shirt jacket has had a lot of people make it in the last 6 months, which is one of the reasons that I felt very comfortable casting on a newer pattern. I really like to make sure and scroll through the Ravelry pages to make sure anything that I'm making for myself is a really good fit. I have found lately that many new patterns that are coming out have a sloppy design in that the neckline is like gaping and the arms aren't fitting right. The armholes look kind of weird. And I think it's just because there's so many new designers out there that are putting out designs really early. This kind of is in dialogue with Caroline Knits. She came out with a video to say why I'm not planning to be a knitting designer. And I really resonated with it. I am not planning to be a knitting designer anytime soon. I have ideas for designs, but I don't feel confident in my ability to design them well for an abundance of body types. That's not to say every new designer is having these problems. I don't think that they are. And this also isn't a problem exclusive to new designers. I've seen some very established designers where you look through everyone that has made the design and there are some obvious structural issues with the knitwear. So I will just say that if you are scrolling through Ravelry and you are looking at designs, or maybe a designer that you haven't knit before, go through the Ravelry project pages. And if one has a funky looking object, some people are newer to knitting, some people knit differently and their object just might be, or they made a weird yarn choice. Some of them might just be weird. But if every single object is looking kind of funky, it's probably gonna look funky on you too. And so that has made me really weary that if I'm not testing and getting the pattern for free, I have been really weary about casting things on that are really new, unless they have been very well tested and have a lot of examples of other people wearing it and knitting it. Because I have seen too many times, and I've actually experienced with myself, patterns that I have cast on and have knitted a good chunk of, and I just keep on looking at it like, what is wrong with this pattern? And often I go online and people are having the exact same issue. So I would just encourage you to look through the Ravelry project pages. It is such a good thing to have on hand, and it is such a good tool to be able to use. And I just think that more people need to be utilizing it, because if you're putting this much money and this much time into something that you're creating, I think that you should have a really good finished object at the end of it. And if the pattern is not great to begin with, what hope is there really? Especially if you're a newer knitter. I mean, I've only been knitting for just over a year. I, especially in my first year, relied on the patterns. I would do small amendments, but I couldn't see structural issues necessarily by just looking at the pattern. And I still can't always, but it is something that I'm becoming more and more conscious of. And I would encourage you to also just keep your eyes peeled, as I would hate for anyone to be disappointed by a pattern. But I will say the Miles shirt jacket, and a lot of designers are having huge tests lately, like 30 to 40 people. And I think the greatest benefit of it, and most of the tests that I'm on as well, is not that they're actually looking for testers, like people to proofread their patterns. Some are, obviously issues come up, but most people are looking for like sample knitters, people to show the pattern on Ravelry. And I think that is the greatest benefit of test knits, is that you get 30 to 40 people knitting your pattern so that people have examples to look at online. I think that that is the greatest tool that a designer can use. And if I ever decide to venture into designing, which won't be until I have years behind my belt, because I would not feel comfortable putting out a pattern right now, knowing that I'm a newer knitter and I'm still learning. I would want to feel like I could put expert knitter and check that box before I ever start designing. And I know people will say, oh, you're limiting yourself. Yes, but I'm also protecting people who have put their trust in me online to be able to say what a good pattern is. Who would I be if I put out a pattern that was then not a good pattern? that's just my 2 cents on it. I would highly recommend that you watch Caroline Knits video because she has lots of other reasons as well, which I think are very valid. And while I don't agree with all of them for me, I'm so glad that people are out there and people are talking about this because it seems like everyone and their mother is becoming a knitwear designer these days. And I think a lot of them have amazing designs, but a lot of them are weird. And I don't completely remember how I got on this tangent, but I do think that this design by Ozetta is a fantastic one. And I actually really love Ozetta's design as illustrated by the next whip that I'm going to show you. So I just showed my finished Lucy blouse and I decided, you know what, I haven't had enough of fisherman's rib. Let's cast on another one. That was not actually my thought process. I was looking for a cardigan to cast on with yarn that I've had in my stash for a while. And I found this one, and honestly, I couldn't find one that I liked better. So I ended up casting on the Oversized Seasons cardigan, also by Ozetta, which is in half fisherman's rib. And I just think it is a beautiful, beautiful pattern. Let me see if I can spread out these stitches just a little bit more here. Oh yeah, look at that. So I am maybe 20 or so rows away from splitting the sleeves. I'm not too far off, but my favorite thing about this sweater is just the way that this button band is done on the edges here. I think it is absolutely beautiful. I am loving the way that it's looking in this yarn, and I just think that this will be such an intensely wearable object, which is what I was looking for. I have a severe lack of cardigans in my wardrobe, and as you can see by almost everything that I've shown today, I just keep casting on darn sweaters. So I knew I needed to cast on a cardigan. I had cast on the balloon cardigan by Petite Knit. And I actually frogged it, not because I don't like the pattern. I have full intentions of knitting it, but I did not have the strength to knit a cardigan at this moment in 3.5mm needles. I am still recovering from my summer of small needle knitting, and I just wanted something that would go a little bit faster, but also I made a mistake. I misread the pattern, and everything that I had done up to that point would basically have to be frogged up to the button band, and I didn't have the strength to restart it. So that project is frogged, and I have full intentions of going back to it. I love the pattern. I think it's fantastic. I just don't have the mental strength for it right now. I want a cardigan now. So I don't know why I thought fisherman's rib would be the antidote to that, because it is also a slow going knit, but I'm working on 5mm needles, and in my heart, that feels like I'm going faster. Do not ask me why. It is probably about the same slowness as the other one was, but I think the big difference for me, and the reason that I love a ribbing on a cardigan, is because you're going knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, instead of knits and then purls, and then knits and then purls. The purl rows were bothering me so much that I've actually been experimenting with combination knitting, and I like it. I'll talk about it in another time. I'm much slower at the knits, and the knits are supposed to be my respite row, and it speeds up my purls and it slows down my knits so that I'm probably knitting at about the same pace, but my knits then annoy me, and I don't want my knits to annoy me, so I haven't stuck with it. But I think if I were to practice with combination, I think that would probably become my preferred method of knitting, but I just don't have the heart to do it right now. I am stressed out. I bought a house. I was doing comprehensive exams, and I have medical shit coming out. It's just insane, an insane time to be alive. So I wanted something a little bit easier, and this is all over ribbing. This is fisherman's rib, this is regular rib, and I've been enjoying it. I was working on it. I was watching The Eternals with my husband the other night. Terrible movie, don't recommend, but this kept me going. I was knitting on it even in the dark. I've actually found that fisherman's rib has become a bit of a comfort knit pattern for me. I just love it. I love fisherman's rib. I love working it. Half fisherman's rib for the record. I think fisherman's rib I would also love working. There's actually a pattern that I plan to cast on in the dead of winter. It's with very thick yarn that is going to be in all fisherman's rib that I think will be lovely. But this pattern has been so delightful to work on, and I am doing it also knitting for Olive. That's what the balloon cardigan was in, but this is in their double merino instead of the merino, and also their silk. Kid silk. mohair kid silk. So that's what those look like. I had got this in the Knitting for Olive Ukraine sale. So this is the first thing from Knitting for Olive that I had ever bought, and it is like the last thing that I'm casting on, of course. So this is in the soft cognac color, and this is the dark cognac color. And I think the two of them together look beautiful. I would have actually loved if this yarn came in this color, but this yarn did not come in this color, but I find that the mohair makes this color more like this color. Yeah, I think that's true. So anyway, I am just loving the way this is turning out. I think a brown cardigan in my wardrobe will have such a firm place, and I am going to wear it to death. But this is definitely a little bit more on the back burner, as you can tell by all of the sleeves that I have to cast on right now. That will be my focus, because my goal with October is to basically get everything that you've seen up to this point off of my needles so that I can go all in on Christmas knits for November. Because as you may have seen in my Christmas knit, holiday knits video, I have a lot to work on and I've barely done any of it. So November is going to be the month that I really settle in and focus, but I really just wanted some things for my fall winter wardrobe. And excuse me, I knew that if I did not cast those on and finish at least some of them, I would be too distracted to focus on Christmas knits. So I'm so glad that I've gotten most of the work out of the way for almost all of them, but now I'm on sleeve island times 8. So yeah, this will I guess be my body respite knit, but I don't plan on finishing in this basically anytime soon. I have one more whip, and I just started it because I have no self-control, but let me show you. So this knit is truly the product of having basically no self-control. It is very early days, but I do like the way it's turning out, and it is the Tulip Guernsey by Midori Hirose. So it is just a baby. This is going to be the front panel, so this is going to sit like this. And this I cast on. I actually didn't have intentions on casting this pattern right away. It's been in my favorites for basically since it came out. But the reason I cast it on is because of this little beauty. I had gotten this. This was the other yarn that I picked up in the Kitchener yarn crawl sale thing. And it is Amble by Wandering Souls in the color Nutkin. And it is this stunning like amber red burnt color. It's just like a darker burnt, it's like burnt red. It's like if burnt orange had a darker child. And I am obsessed with this. And for me, this screams fall. But I wasn't gonna cast it on in my knitting plans, basically until winter. And then I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what, that's stupid, because the time I'm most likely to wear it is leading up till Christmas. And I won't have it done until January, likely. And by then, I'll want to wear cooler toned colors. Someone fix my brain, please. So I decided that I'd cast this on. And the pattern, I don't have enough yarn for the whole thing. But the great thing about the Tulip Guernsey is they have in the pattern ways to make it a vest, ways to make it a short sleeve, ways to make it a 3/4 sleeve, ways to make it a full sleeve, and for all of those sleeve lengths to look good. And it is also done on 5mm needles, so it is thicker, and it goes by pretty fast, and all of the cabling is on the top of the object. So once you get beyond the panels, the top and the back panel, the front and the back panel, you're basically going on the round. And I think that once the panels are done, it'll be a really quick knit. My hope is to have enough yarn to be able to do the 3/4 length sleeve, or at least like a half sleeve. I don't know if that's gonna be the case, but that is the dream. But I knew that I wanted to make this yarn into something special, and I wasn't convinced that I'd be able to get a full sweater out of it. I thought I would do the Riento. That's what everyone seems to be doing, and they say you need 2 skeins of fingering and the equivalent in mohair. And I didn't like the way that this yarn looked on a 6mm. I knew I would at least have to do 5, and I wasn't convinced that I'd be able to get a full sweater out of it. So I figured I'd do something fun instead. I am pairing it with the Standisgarn Tin Silk mohair in their color Rust, which is a little bit lighter, but not as light. And I was initially going to pair it with my giant cone of mohair, but it's just too light, as you can tell. So I picked this up in Galt House of Yarn. I had points to go towards it, and I think they work decently well. This does have the problem where the mohair is noticeably lighter, so if you look really closely at the stitches, you can definitely tell the difference between the mohair and the yarn itself, but I don't think it's that bad, and I actually really love the color from afar that they're creating together. And I've just done a little bit. This is maybe an hour and a half's work, and I'm really enjoying this pattern a lot. The way that the cables are done is like a new way of cabling for me, so that's really fun. It's cables that I've never done before, and I love Midori Hirose's knits. I've done the Ranunculus, the Snow Crocus. This is the third pattern I'm doing for them. I will say all of their patterns have ridiculously long pattern notes themselves, but they're so detailed, and I don't think that you'll be disappointed. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be able to have it and wear it and to be working on this yarn. I mean, at the very least, if I can't wear it in fall, at least I'm looking at the color in fall, and that also gives me intense joy. So this past week, in the midst of my exams and house buying, I had a dear friend on Instagram message me saying, hey, we would love to send you a goodie bag of our new yarns. And I said, me? Are you kidding? Yes, please. And it just truly made my day. And then it showed up like 3 days later, and it truly has made my entire week that I got sent this lovely collection of yarns. So this is by a Canadian store called The Creative Knitters. Sorry for the crinkling, I know it bothers some people. And they have a new collection of yarns coming out. And this is a shop and a collection of yarns that I've been familiar with for a while. But they often go with more rainbow colors, which I love the look of, but I would not personally wear. And they came out with this collection, I think it's the Homebody. Yeah, Homebody Collection, that is more down-to-earth colors. And when they said they were gonna send me like a goodie bag, I thought it'd be like one skein of yarn. I opened this box and I squealed in Shoppers Drug Mart because I just have no patience. I of course was opening it in the post office that I got it in, and I kept it in the box so that you can experience what I experienced when opening this up. But look at them! It is so pretty. Look at those colors. So they basically gave me, I think, almost one of every base of yarns that they have. They, the Creative Knitter is a store. It's south of Niagara Falls, Ontario, in I think Fort Erie area. I might be wrong on that. But this collection is launching October 14th. If you're interested in getting your hands on any of these, I might be looking to get more of these myself. I think that they are beautiful, and I feel so incredibly lucky to have some of these in my life. So let me show you what they sent. So this one is a sock set. This is the colorway Let's Stay Home. It is their classic sock set in 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And look at the gradation on that. Those colors are stunning. And this might actually make me knit some socks. I was thinking too that I might be able to make a hat and turn this into the poof. So that's what I'm thinking for these, but the color is just absolutely stunning. I'm in love. And then they sent over this one. This I think is my favorite. Look at that orange. This is in the color Fireside. This is their classic DK. Again, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Excuse me, too much coffee. But again, it is superwash. I don't find this as, like, comparing it with the Ozetta. Yeah, it feels very similar. I would say this one's a little bit more superwashy, a little bit smoother to the touch, but not too much. It's definitely not like plasticky, and the colorways, unreal. This one I think is the most likely to become a hat because that color, I just want it all the time. This next one rivals for my favorite. This is their rustic sock. It's 85% superwash, 15% Donegal Nep, which I think is like the speckles in it. And this is in the color Introvert, which I relate to intensely. It's a beautiful color. I never thought that I would be into like a tealy color, but I actually really love this. And I love the way too it looks with the orange. I think they look so fun together or beside each other. And then the last one is their worsted, and this is just 100% superwash merino, and this is in the color Hugluna Mug. I don't know how to say that. That's the colorway, and it's this beautiful brown. She really knows my colors. So yeah, I thank you so much to the team over at The Creative Knitter. I will link it down below. So this collection again goes live on the 14th. Let's carry on. I did get a few other things. So I stumbled across a yarn yard sale where they were selling a bunch of secondhand yarns, and I got some stuff, obviously, and just keep in mind all of this I spent $60 on, which is insane. So the first thing that I got is this Rowan Creative Focus worsted. I ended up with 4 balls of this beautiful gray, and I think this will be good for a vest. It is, what is this fabric? Is it, I feel like it's not 100, oh yeah, 75% wool, 25% alpaca. And I will say the alpaca is very forward in this one. It feels alpaca-y, if that makes any sense. I am so interested to see what the alpaca does to the drape on this yarn, as it does feel on the thicker side, but with the alpaca it must have a good drape, which is cool. The second thing I got was 2 of these. This is Juniper Moon's Stargazer Brushed Extra Fine Baby Llama. I've never had a llama fiber before, and I've never had anything from Juniper Moon before. I've always admired their yarns, but they've always been way too expensive for me. But these were $5 a pop, so that's amazing. So this is 85% baby llama and 15% nylon, and this is a worsted weight, and it is reminds me a lot of Drops Air. I got 2 skeins of this. I don't quite know what I'm going to do with it. I might combine it with another yarn to make a sweater, some kind of color work or color blocking. I just don't know how well llama is going to play well with others, so I need to do some research. Maybe you guys can tell me, how does llama drape? I have no idea. Is it more like a wool, or is it more like an alpaca, or is it somewhere in between? Do you think that this would go well with the Drops Air type wool? Let me know. I have no idea, but it is beautiful, and this color is just to die for. The next one I got is 3 hanks of this. This is originally Ministel Uruguay, and it is a sport weight yarn, but she did not know exactly which of the Ministel Uruguays it is. I am guessing it's Milo? Is it just Milo? I think it's Milo. But it's this beautiful blue color, and I think it equates to 400 grams of this. So I think I have enough to make some kind of top. I think that's make a lovely top, or perhaps I combine it with something else and make a sweater. But I'm not usually a blue person, but for whatever reason, this blue is really speaking to me. And I mean, I got all of those for 15 bucks. And Ministel Uruguay is like a very nice yarn brand, so I had to pick it up. And then my beloved Cascade 220. I actually got 2 of these. The other one is already being worked into a blanket, so I don't have it to show here, but I got 2 skeins of Cascade 220. This one is their Heather's base, and it's just this beautiful like greeny, it's actually showing up a little bit more green than blue, but I would say it is a green blue. Equal parts green, equal parts blue. But I think it is beautiful, and I think it'll be worked into that same blanket one day. But yeah, really cleaned up at that garage sale. There was so much being offered there, including finished objects. So I would just recommend that you keep an eye out in your city to see if you have any yarn knit goods garage sales going on. I did not know that this was a thing that happened, but I was so excited. And people could just buy a table to be able to sell their wares there, and that is something I would definitely recommend for myself in the future, because there's definitely some yarns in my stash that I don't know that I would ever knit with in hindsight. So, and I feel such a responsibility to make sure that they're handled well. So yeah, definitely something that I would look for in the future. But that, I think, at long last, is all I have to share with you all. Thank you so much for joining me. As I've mentioned, it has been a crazy couple of weeks. I have been just back and forth between school and the house and doctor's appointments, and it feels like I am finally this week getting to take a bit of a deep breath. The house finalized, so it is 100% sold. We had conditions, which was great for us. Usually you can't get conditions anymore, but the market seems to be changing. So we actually got an inspection condition, which was amazing. So we had the inspection, nothing catastrophic, and the house sale is now final. We are going to own the house as of mid-December. So I literally cannot believe that I am going to be a homeowner. I didn't believe I'd own a home until I was like 40 because of the market. I am just in awe. Like, me and my husband talk about it all the time. Like, we're homeowners now. I am dreaming of paint colors. I am resisting the urge. I have such a strong urge to paint everything in my house green, and I need to not do that. I'm like, that can be sage green, and that can be dark green, and that can be like a medium green. And my husband's like, it can't all be green. So, and I agree, it can't all be green. But I am so excited for that. The house is pretty renovated, and honestly, if I didn't want to paint, I don't have to. The paint colors that they have in there are pretty good, but because I've been living in white-walled rentals for like 10 years, I just want to put some color on the walls. I am so excited. Yeah, and there's just lots of exciting things coming up. My birthday is soon, my husband's birthday is soon, Christmas is soon. We just had Thanksgiving, or I guess it's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. So happy Thanksgiving if you are in Canada as well. So we've been getting lots of good food and getting to see family, and it just feels like things have finally turned from the stressful side to the recovering side, and I can finally take a deep breath. So I hope you are all well as well, and that you are having a lovely week or weekend wherever you are. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.